Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO at checkout.
Upgrade your laundry routine with a durable and reliable Maytag laundry pair at Lowe's. Like the new Maytag washer and dryer with performance-enhanced stain-fighting power, designed to cut through serious dirt and grime. And what's great is this laundry pair is in stock and ready for delivery when you need it the most. Don't miss out. Shop Maytag in-store or online today at Lowe's.
You're listening to Campus Killings, brought to you by AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to check out some of the other great true crime podcasts from this network, including The Murder in My Family, DNA ID, Zodiac Speaking, Scene of the Crime, Missing Persons, Beyond Bizarre True Crime, and Killer Communications. All of these podcasts are available for you to binge on right now, wherever you listen to podcasts. Subscribe where you're listening to this podcast so you don't miss an episode.
Hi, Amy, and welcome back, listeners. Today's case was suggested by Christina P., and she sent us one of the very first requests we ever got. So thank you to Christina for her patience in waiting for this episode. Christina is a student at Georgia Tech, and she's very familiar with today's case, which involves a student's death at the hands of on-campus police. Christina would like to hear our thoughts on campus mental health awareness reforms and our opinions in general about Scout Schultz's case. We're definitely looking forward to having that discussion at the end, but before we get into Scout's story, let's take a look at the university where this all happened. Originally called the Georgia School of Technology, the school was founded in 1885 to create a technology-based university for the South. After the Civil War, the mostly agrarian-based southern states had very little industry, and the founders hoped creating a college that would teach the industrial arts would help the South compete with the much more industrialized northern states. Built in the heart of Atlanta, the school opened to students in 1888 with just 2 buildings. We've heard a lot about these first schools and, 1 or 2 buildings.
Mm-hmm.
But by the 1920s, it had grown quite large and also began admitting female students for the first time. The college expanded in the 30s and 40s, adding a business school, a research institute, state-of-the-art library, and one of the most modern gymnasiums in the world for its time. By the 1960s, Georgia Tech was called the MIT of the South, and it was the only university in the Deep South to peacefully end segregation without a court order. The school also participated in hosting the 1996 Summer Olympics by building an aquatic center for the swimming competitions and using the university's West Campus as the Olympic Village. So cool, right?
That's pretty cool.
I know. I thought that was so cool.
That's one of my favorite parts about Campus Killings is learning about the history of universities. Every single university has such an interesting history.
I know. I love it too. I think that's because we're professor geeks, right? Okay. Today, Georgia Tech is known for its rigorous placement, only accepting around 12% of its applicants, and it has a culture of high academic achievement and typically attracts students who are very serious about their studies. So for the star mathlete, Scout Schultz, Georgia Tech was the school of their dreams. Born in Maryland as Scott Schultz, by the age of 16, Scott realized he was non-binary and intersex. Though it would be several years before he would publicly choose the name Scout and use they-them pronouns, he began experimenting with gender presentation in high school. I just want to point out, since they-them were Scout's official pronouns at the time of the events we're discussing, I will also be referring to Scout as they-them for the rest of the episode. By all accounts, Scout's parents were incredibly supportive of their oldest child's morphing gender transformation, as well as Scout's academics and many hobbies. From a young age, Scout was what their parents called, quote, scary smart, whizzing through math problems and striving for straight A's in every grade. While the Schultz family moved around a lot and Scout suffered from several chronic health issues, including migraines, ulcerative colitis, and an anatomic anomaly called hypospadias, they were described as a funny and creative young person who became, in their words, a giant nerd.
Megan, can I ask what hypospadias means?
Yeah, no, that's a good question because this is very important. It's a urinary issue that can also be an indicator of a child being intersex, Amy. It means that they have chromosomal patterns and or anatomical attributes that are not fully male or female.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
I hadn't really either. I mean, I did know that it existed. I guess I never knew the language around it.
Yeah, I never heard of that term before.
Okay. Scout loved to play Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering with friends, as well as Minecraft, Pokemon, and other card games. They also enjoyed learning languages and became fluent in Latin. Wait, get this.
Oh, wow.
So much so that they taught their dog how to take commands in Latin.
Oh, that's really cool.
I know. They were incredibly high achieving in high school and received a scholarship to Georgia Tech to major in computer engineering. This was their dream school, and they were so excited to start, they decided to begin in the summer semester of 2014 instead of traditionally waiting for the fall. All right. By the end of their first year, Scout was thriving at Georgia Tech. They had a 3.9 GPA, and more importantly, they had found their niche on campus. Scout joined an LGBTQ plus group called the Pride Alliance. And on National Coming Out Day in 2015, Scout announced their identity and orientation publicly for the first time. This is kind of a big deal. According to Scout's mom, Lynn, this public announcement seemed to make Scout incredibly happy, and they began acting very comfortable with themselves following the announcement. But much to her shock, only a few months later, she got a call from the university that Scout had tried to die by suicide by hanging themselves from their bunk with a belt.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming somebody found them and they were saved?
Well, the belt had snapped and Scout hadn't sustained any physical injuries, but it was clear that Scout was in need of help. So I didn't find literature that said Scout suffered from depression prior to this incident. Scout's mom said that they attached a lot of anxiety to their grades and academic performance, and that the constant moving from school to school due to the family's financial situation did cause Scout a lot of stress as a child. And Georgia Tech has an abnormally high level of stress reported in their students. Stats from 2014 to 2017 showed a 9% increase in their students thinking of attempting suicide while attending. I mean, this is a very high performance school, and I imagine there's a lot of stress that comes
Pressure,
with this. Okay.
And plus Scout, it sounds like Scout had some personal things that they were dealing with as well that I'm sure combined was probably pretty difficult.
Yeah, I think so. Now, Georgia Tech did have an on-site counseling center that Scout began going to, but the amount of students utilizing the center far outweighed the staff.
Do you know anything about how disparate the number of people who needed help and provided help was?
Yeah, that's a good question. There was only one counselor per 1,500 students.
No.
Yes. And due to this, students were only allowed a maximum of 16 sessions over their whole 4 years, which breaks down to just 2 sessions a semester. Yeah.
That's not enough for somebody who is really struggling.
No. And so Scout opted to get help off campus via a psychiatrist and psychologist who prescribed antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds along with talk therapy. According to their parents, Scout seemed to be feeling better after a few months, and everyone hoped they had just put too much pressure on themselves for academic perfection. Scout even started getting really involved in on-campus social justice campaigns and became the president of the Pride Alliance in 2016. In 2017, Scout also co-founded a new club called the Progressive Students Alliance, or PSA. As their first act, the group publicly demonstrated against Georgia's House Bill 51, which sought to prevent universities from doing any preemptive investigations into sexual assault allegations under Title IX hearings, instead deferring all allegations to local police. The PSA feared that this would silence victims who would be afraid to make reports to the police. So on March 3rd, 2017, with Scout at the head of the procession, they marched from the university to the state capitol in protest. To their credit, the bill was tabled by the Senate just a few weeks later. This turned Scout into an activist who led several marches to support Muslim students on campus, in addition to working several events to bring awareness to preventing sexual violence, and even created fundraisers to support homeless transgender youth. Scout also found a great friendship in one of the Pride Alliance's founding members, Kat Mondin. Kat later described Scout as her closest confidant as they participated in Atlanta's Pride parades, held meetings for PSA, and played Magic the Gathering or just chatted over coffee and homework. But friendship wasn't all Scout found in their newfound social activism. They also found their first love. And now, a brief word from our sponsors.
Thank you for calling the Bombas Comfort Line. Bombas make socks, slippers, tees, and underwear made with the highest quality materials. Press 1 for comfort, 2 for style, 3 for donation.
You chose style. Bombas is styles for whatever you enjoy. You can run in Bombas, lounge in Bombas, dress them up, dress them down, but always give back in Bombas. Because with every item purchased, another is donated. Bombas, comfort worth calling for. Go to bombas.com/audio and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO.
October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a reminder that your digital life is always at risk. Every day, hackers steal identities, drain bank accounts, and open fraudulent accounts. LifeLock is here with tips to help prevent you from becoming a victim. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication on your accounts, report scams, and update the software on your devices. And for peace of mind, get LifeLock. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Plus, LifeLock plans include the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you to your plan's limits if you lose money due to identity theft. Stay smart, stay safe, and stay protected. Get comprehensive identity protection with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. That's LifeLock.com, promo code NEWS for 30 days free. Terms apply.
During their junior year, Scout attended a party with students from the neighboring college, Georgia State University, and they met and were instantly smitten with a girl named Dallas Punja. The two bonded over their shared love of the animated TV show Steven Universe, and it didn't take long for the pair to decide to date exclusively. But though Dallas was also genderqueer, she was from an immigrant Pakistani family and had never come out to them for fear of their rejection. She also struggled with a borderline personality disorder and intense depression. In fact, she tried to take her own life twice and even contemplated jumping off a bridge at one point before meeting Scout.
Oh, wow. So I'm assuming Scout changed things in her life?
I mean, Scout wasn't deterred by this and tried their best to bolster Dallas's confidence and help her feel loved and accepted. One text exchange from Scout to Dallas stated, quote, "Together we can be a splendid combination, like peanut butter and jelly, depression and anxiety." And in another, after she said she felt repulsive, Scout replied, quote, "You are beautiful and I love you so much." As the semester wore on, Scout fell hard for Dallas and even brought her home to meet their family. And while it's not clear if their relationship with Dallas prompted what came next or not, Scout collaborated on a campaign through the Pride Alliance called Tech Ends Suicide Together, which sought to educate students about the warning signs of suicidal ideations and help refer those afflicted to counseling services. Very active, like extremely active. But despite all the success and activism happening in Scout's life, they felt high levels of anxiety too. So not long after taking over as president, the Pride Alliance lost their office space in the Student Center, which Scout saw as a failure on their part. Now, it wasn't. The university repurposed all club space to make room for a Greek life center.
So it wasn't just that club, it was other clubs as well.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. There was also the continual stress of keeping a near 4.0 GPA while heading up not just the Pride Alliance, but also PSA and other social justice initiatives. And then in the summer between Scout's junior and senior year, year, the romance with Dallas came to an end. It's not completely clear what broke the couple up, but Scout's friends could tell that Scout was still so in love with Dallas and took the breakup really hard. And while Scout had always been an anxious person, no one realized just how bad the anxiety had gotten. On the night of September 16th, 2017, Scout knocked on Kat Munden's door, and when she opened it, Scout handed her a box and told her to consider it an early birthday present before quickly walking away. Kat found the behavior a little odd, but thought maybe Scout had just dropped by before going back to homework. Didn't think too much until she opened the box. In it were all of Scout's favorite and most expensive Magic the Gathering cards, along with a note thanking Kat for being the best friend Scout had ever had. Now, from all of her work with Pride Alliance on the suicide prevention campaign, Kat realized that Scout was performing one of the first signs of someone preparing to take their own life, which is giving away prized possessions.
Yeah.
So she ran out of the apartment, but Scout was already gone. She went directly to Scout's dorm room, located just 2 floors down from her own, but Scout wasn't there either. Trailed by Scout's 2 roommates, who were also members of the Pride Alliance, Kat ran into the night, hoping to intercept her best friend before they did the unthinkable.
I'm assuming people had cell phones at this point. She probably tried calling them.
You know what? I don't know if she did. It's a safe assumption because this is 10 years ago, but I think she was actually just running on foot and more needed to do something immediately. As Kat crossed campus, she saw police car lights flickering off the buildings, and a fellow student told her not to go down 8th Street in front of the student apartments. Why? Because the cops were dealing with a guy supposedly carrying a knife. And Kat had a very bad feeling that she knew who that person was. We'll return after a brief word from our sponsors.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com and use code AUDIO for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com and use code AUDIO at checkout.
October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a reminder that your digital life is always at risk. Every day, hackers steal identities, drain bank accounts, and open fraudulent accounts. LifeLock is here with tips to help prevent you from becoming a victim. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication on your accounts, report scams, and update the software on your devices. And for peace of mind, get LifeLock. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Plus, LifeLock plans include the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you to your plan's limits if you lose money due to identity theft. Stay smart, stay safe, and stay protected. Get comprehensive identity protection with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. That's LifeLock.com, promo code NEWS for 30 days free. Terms apply.
According to later reports, at 11:17 p.m. on September 16th, Scout made a 911 call under their birth name, Scott Schultz, telling the operator that there was a strange guy carrying a knife with a gun on his hip lurking around the student apartments on the campus's West Village. They then gave the operator their own physical description when asked what the strange guy looked like.
I see what's happening here.
Yeah, I had a feeling you would. And yes. Okay.
So tragic. Okay.
Yes. When Georgia Tech's campus police arrived, Scout was walking barefoot in front of a parking garage holding a small multi-tool which contained a knife and screwdriver. I mean, according to reports, the blade was not visible. Scout was just holding the multi-tool, but in the dark, the police couldn't tell if it was a pocket knife, a gun, or a sheathed blade.
And was Scout also acting erratically, screaming, saying things, threatening?
Yes. In fact, the police, just so you know, the police, they had their guns drawn, but they kept ordering Scout to drop the weapon because they didn't want to shoot. But instead, Scout walked towards the circle of officers and shouted, "Shoot me." Another officer tried to reason with Scout, citing nobody wanted to hurt them. but that they had to drop the weapon and stop advancing. Scout continued slowly walking towards the officers as they asked for a name, but Scout remained silent. They asked for them to talk, to put down the weapon, to stop walking. And for a second, Scout reportedly did stop, seeming unsure of what to do next, but then continued to advance, shouting for the police to shoot. As Scout faced down the police officers, Kat was running up 8th Street, but as she approached, one officer opened fire. Kat watched helplessly as Scout took the bullet to the chest and fell. She screamed and tried to break the cop's line to get to Scout, but she was restrained. However, her roommate explained that Scout was their friend, and Kat was released and allowed to follow the ambulance to the hospital. Upon arrival, several of their other friends from the Pride Alliance joined Kat in the ER's waiting room, waiting to hear what had happened. University administration were also there, along with several police officers, while everyone waited for Scout's parents to arrive from their hometown of Lilburn, about a 30-minute drive away.
I mean, this sounds like, I know we're going to definitely be talking about this, but it sounds like the police were acting within protocol.
So this is part of the discussion. I think part of the reason Christina had requested this case as well, to hear what we think about the police actions.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, after a few hours of not hearing any news, Kat and the Pride Alliance went back to their dorms. And when the news finally came, it was devastating. Scout had died. To put what comes next in context, Scout's death at the hands of the police came on the heels of several similar high-profile cases, including those that we cover in our classes: Eric Garner, Breonna Taylor, Philandro Castile, and others, in fact. And in 2017, over 28 transgender and non-binary people died in violent incidents in the United States. But let me just say, not all were at the hands of police, okay? But with this background, it's not hard to understand why it only took 48 hours for Georgia Tech to become the epicenter of politically charged chaos. Scout's death split the campus, with many students citing police brutality and gender identity discrimination, while others saw the incident as a tragic suicide by cop. Mm-hmm. And even as the university set up counseling stations and a vigil was planned in Scout's memory, there were concerns that any kind of memorial would possibly turn into a riot. Scout had friends in Atlanta's Antifa circles, and their aggressive protest tactics had been creating tension with local police forces. There was so much concern that Scout's friend, Matt Wolfson, who was working with the university to plan the vigil, actually contacted Antifa members and requested that they not incite violence if they came to pay their respects. Mm-hmm. And while they promised they would not disrespect grieving people, once the vigil was concluded, they would do whatever they wanted. On top of this, as information about Scout's death became more public, it came to light that campus police did not have tasers to non-lethally de-escalate situations.
That's problematic.
Yeah, it is. The officer responsible for taking Scout's life was also new to the agency and had not completed crisis intervention training since it wasn't.
So why were they at a crisis?
It wasn't mandatory for the department.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This further fueled the divide between students who felt Scout's death was the result of the university's systemic failures, while others felt the incident was being used to vilify police to fit the national views on law enforcement. Regardless, Scout's vigil was held in the university's outdoor amphitheater with over 500 students in attendance. But as it was concluding, a group of protesters appeared on the fringes of the crowd with bandanas covering their faces. Unclear who these students were. Some had hammers and cans of spray paint, and they unfurled large banners that read, "End police violence, end police," and "Defend LGBTQ plus and GTPD." So flyers were passed through the crowd advertising a march directly following the vigil that would leave the amphitheater and head to 8th Street, where students had created a makeshift memorial for Scout. As mourners lit candles and held a moment of silence, some students began shouting about the lack of mental health assistance on campus. And soon the crowd was chanting, "No justice, no peace, F the police. The crowd moved out of the amphitheater chanting, but instead of heading towards the 8th Street Memorial as intended, they went to Georgia Tech Police headquarters. Campus police had anticipated this, and the crowd was met with cruisers and officers from both the school and Atlanta PD. The protesters set a police car on fire, and 2 officers were reportedly hit in the head with hammers as they made arrests.
Jeez.
Yeah, this unfortunately really went in the wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
Scout's best friend, Kat, was one of the arrested individuals after she jumped on top of a patrol car. Some reports say that she jumped up and down on the hood and tried to kick in one of the windows, while others say she just stood on top of the car and shouted that the police had murdered her best friend. Unclear as to which was true. She was later charged with a felony for interfering with government property, as well as other misdemeanors for inciting a riot.
So what would end up happening to her? Were charges dropped, or they were trying to make an example out of her?
Yeah, that's a good question. She was held in jail for 2 days before being sent for a psych evaluation, and her bail was placed at $20,000. When she was released a few days later, she received an email from the school that she was suspended and banned from the campus for, quote, the existence of significant risk to the health and safety of the institute community.
Oh.
Yeah. Following the protest as well, Georgia Tech's president ordered a shelter in place and sends an email to all students blaming the violence on outside agitators. But this only fueled the fire more, so to speak, Amy, as in the Deep South, phrases like outside agitators were once used to discredit civil rights activists like Martin Luther King Jr. And many of the LGBTQ plus students saw this as the president being more concerned with the protest than Scout's death at the hands of their own police force. But as support for demanding justice for Scout grew, many students pushed back and counter-protested with support for the Georgia Tech police in the protest's wake. So this divide is only furthering. Meanwhile, for Scout's friend Matt Wolfson, all of this was getting away from the real issue. In his estimation, Scout's death was due to a systemic failure to supply appropriate mental health support to students and require crisis intervention courses for police. Mm-hmm. He gathered members of the PSA and created a list of demands to deliver to the university president that included better mental health care, police accountability, and improved accommodations for students who identified as LGBTQ+. As PSA was making plans to meet with the president, Georgia Tech police were investigating the protest, and a week following Scout's vigil, 6 students were arrested. Though according to some reports, most had not actually participated in the march and had only been present at the memorial. This continued to fuel anger and anxiety on the campus, particularly for members of the Pride Alliance, who felt like sitting ducks waiting for cops to knock on their apartment doors with handcuffs. In fact, actually, 2 of them did end up arrested, according to reports. Following this, Matt Wolfson and the PSA publicly stated that they would perform a die in front of the president's office, in which students en masse would lay prone on the ground to represent the amount of students who would die from the lack of adequate mental health resources unless administration agreed to meet. A few days later, Matt Wolfson got an invitation to sit down with the school administration and 2 of Georgia's federal legislatures.
Oh.
In many ways, the meeting bore some success, you might say. The administration was creating action teams to evaluate the campus's mental health crisis, campus culture, LGBTQ plus issues, and public safety. Along with campus SGA, the administration pledged to put $1 million towards mental health services and a second $1 million endowment towards campus wellness and police training.
I'm sorry, you might have said this before, but this was campus police, not
yes,
the
that's
local
correct.
police. Okay.
Correct. But after being seriously questioned about his involvement with Antifa and the protest, Matt Wolfson came away from the meeting with a sense of foreboding that the school administration thought he had personally incited the violence. So he retained a lawyer and petitioned a FERPA for all of his Georgia Tech files. This is, the can petition educational records.
Is that similar to freedom of information?
Yes, but freedom of access to academic records. Okay. And he was shocked to find that the university administration had been tracking him through his social media accounts. Yeah, so he received...
Is that allowed?
I mean, it's if they're public, I'm sure it's allowed. Mm-hmm. He received 3 5-inch binders filled with screen grabs that administration had pulled of all of his posts for PSA and Pride Alliance, along with notes, tracking his trip to a Democratic Socialist of America National Convention. This was surprising. When confronted, the school noted they'd only seen his posts because most of them had hashtags linked to this school, and he was never disciplined or reprimanded for anything. But it certainly put all of Scout's friends on edge. They worried that the school was watching them too, but there wasn't much they could do but go back to class. And now, a brief word from our sponsors.
October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, a reminder that your digital life is always at risk. Every day, hackers steal identities, drain bank accounts, and open fraudulent accounts. LifeLock is here with tips to help prevent you from becoming a victim. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication on your accounts, report scams, and update the software on your devices. And for peace of mind, get LifeLock. LifeLock monitors millions of data points a second for threats to your identity. If your identity is stolen, a LifeLock US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Plus, LifeLock plans include the $1 Million Protection Package, meaning LifeLock will reimburse you to your plan's limits if you lose money due to identity theft. Stay smart, stay safe, and stay protected. Get comprehensive identity protection with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com. Use promo code NEWS. That's LifeLock.com, promo code NEWS for 30 days free. Terms apply.
As Scout's friends and family laid Scout to rest on October 8th, 2017, their death was being investigated by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. As we've seen in many other cases, these investigations are often long, and it was still ongoing by the one-year anniversary of Scout's death, on which a second protest was staged against Georgia Tech PD, though this one was peaceful. And Georgia Tech students continued using Scout's death as a catalyst for change. In 2018, several queer student leaders banded together to form the Mental Health Joint Allegations Committee, which became responsible for managing the $1 million in funding the university president had pledged to on-campus mental health. Over the next 2 years, they secured more funding through an intercollegiate student-run mental health conference and expanded Georgia Tech's counseling services to include a new LGBTQ plus center, telehealth counseling options for students, and therapeutic biotechnologies. By 2019, the official investigation was not yet completed, and Scout's parents were frustrated by the lack of justice for their child.
Can I ask, when you're saying official investigation, they're trying, the big question here is, were the police wrong in shooting Scout? Correct?
Correct,
okay.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, I guess we can talk about this, but I'm wondering, in your opinion, had Scout not dropped off that box of belongings, how different would this conversation be? Meaning, like, it seems like that gives evidence that it was suicide by cop, right? But regardless of whether Scout wanted to be shot, the police still can't just shoot someone unless things are in place, correct?
I mean, that of course they can't, but it does seem evident, yes, that this was an attempt at suicide. Whether or not the police handled it correctly, we can discuss in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
As we also see, Amy, many families will do this. They went to the civil courts and sued the university in a wrongful death suit. Mm-hmm. Though the school settled with them in 2021 for $1 million, it would never be enough to repair the wounds caused by their child's death at the hands of campus police. But they would not see justice in the criminal courts either, as at the conclusion of the investigation in March of 2020, the Atlanta District Attorney's Office ruled that the officer responsible for the shooting would not face charges. And this was because use of force experts ruled the shooting as justified under the circumstances. And that being that the suspect was armed and that Scout did not comply with lawful orders to put the weapon down or stop advancing.
And I agree with that, but I think the issue is, why did they not have a way to control the situation by use of non-deadly force?
So I think that's
a big question.
There's a couple of things here. And also, this was very disheartening to Scout's family and community. But it wasn't necessarily a surprise based on the outcomes of other cases.
One other question.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't have a taser and they only had a gun, should they not have shot them in the leg or in a another place. I don't
Exactly.
know
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, this is one of those controversial things as well, Amy, because law enforcement are often trained, and even as a federal probation officer, you're trained kind of, if there's a danger, you shoot at center mass because you have the best center mass, like the chest, the area is the best chance you have at immobilizing a threat. However, it sounded to me like Scout was slowly advancing, and I do think that there was an option here, even with a firearm, to aim low and incapacitate rather than using lethal violence. I just want to say that as well. It's not the outcome that everyone had hoped for, and people were divided on it. And in fact, I feel split on this as well for the reasons we just said, because I think that having tasers or having a non-lethal option would have prevented this death. However, I'm also not sympathetic, but I also do understand that Scout was armed and advancing on officers, so there was a threat. I just think that there could have been somewhere in between or a de-escalation that would have saved Scout's life here.
Yeah. I agree.
Despite the divide on campus, eventually this campus did begin to heal. In 2018, the university created a new LGBTQ plus resource center, whose first act was to send several trans students to do a training on trans awareness and inclusion with Georgia Tech Police. By all accounts, the training was fruitful, and the majority of officers were reportedly very clearly engaged in the training. Mental health facilities were greatly expanded at the university, and while I wasn't able to find current statistics on suicides there, in 2021, they were below the national average and were reportedly working to get the number to 0. The university also granted Scout their posthumous degree in computer engineering at the 2018 commencement. And while I didn't find any memorials or scholarships in Scout's name at Georgia Tech, they changed an entire school's culture surrounding mental health. And that is no small legacy. Okay, if any of our listeners identify as LGBTQ+ and are struggling with thoughts of suicide, help is available. So you can check out the Trevor Project at www.thetrevorproject.org/gethelp. Or you can call or text the Suicide Prevention Hotline at 988 anytime, anywhere. And if you have a case you'd like us to cover, please send us a message on our website, www.abjackentertainment.com/campuskillings. Thank you so much for listening today, and we hope you'll join us on the next episode of Campus Killings.
Before we go today, if you'd like to support Campus Killings, consider subscribing to the show with an AbJack Insider subscription through Apple Podcasts.
Your subscription will get you VIP access to all the shows on the network, that not only includes hundreds of episodes of ad-free listening, but also bonus content and early access to episodes.
For only $4.99 a month or $49.99 a year, you'll unlock a variety of listener benefits, and you'll be supporting this show in the process.
Head over to Apple Podcasts and search for either Campus Killings or AbJack, and you can start your subscription with a free trial.
Your support is greatly appreciated.
Campus Killings is hosted by Dr. Megan Sachs and Dr. Amy Schlossberg, with research and writing by Abigail Belcastro. It's produced by Mike Morford of AbJack Entertainment. Be sure to follow Campus Killings on social media. You can find Campus Killings on Twitter with the handle @CampusKillings or on Facebook at facebook.com/CampusKillings. You can also visit the show's homepage at campuskillings.com. Be sure to tune in every other Saturday for new episodes of Campus Killings.